Hey hoes, how's it going? So basically, I think about a week or two ago I finished Valhalla. I 100%ed it, got the platinum, everything. I'm gonna make a video eventually reviewing the whole thing, all the 250 plus hours I spent on it, and talking about the whole platinum and how I even got it. But this is a little different. I want to talk about why it's strange to me that female Eivor is canon, and why there's one glaring issue in the plot that I feel makes her not the canon character. That doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it. And that is, okay, that is the fact that, oh, by the way, spoiler warning, if you haven't played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I'm probably going to talk about the story a lot, so you probably should, so go away for 10 years, play that game, finish the story, and then come back, because that's how long it's going to take you. But anyways, so he's back into it. The reason I think that female Eivor isn't canon, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in my eyes, is because, you know, the whole reincarnation thing, how Odin and all the other gods, they uploaded their mind to Yggdrasil and then they became reincarnated, because that's what you're playing as. You're playing as a reincarnated Odin, right? First, the first issue is mostly because of the game, because you can choose which gender, and I find it really stupid, the fact that we can go so deep into these ancestors' memories and find out when they took a piss and who they fucked, right? But we can't decide what the gender is. I think that makes a big difference, because I don't know if you know, but like gender is kind of a big deal. Men and women think, act very differently, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that you're just gonna bunch them together like this, like, oh, it's just the same person, it really detracts from the story. Like, if you made it like a specific story, specifically male, specifically female, that would have been a lot better. Like if it was a story specific to female Eivor, where she could have a lot of different things specific to her gender, right? That'd be more interesting, instead of having two of the same, right? It doesn't matter, right? But the main thing I have is that when they reincarnated themselves, every other god reincarnated into the same gender. Loki got reincarnated into Basim. Tyr got reincarnated to Sigurd. Valka's mom, if you don't remember her, I don't blame you, because the game doesn't really explain it that well. But Valka's mom, she was basically the reincarnation of Freya. She was, when we went to that place in Horifilke, that vault or whatever the fuck it is, she was in that crane thing. You know the crane? Yeah, the crane thing that Basim got strapped into. Yeah, she was in that crane thing. So that was apparently the reincarnation of Freya, and it makes sense, because she probably got the vision too, which is why she went all the way there, and she hooked herself up in the crane, right? And Thor got reincarnated into Halfdan. He was in one of the arcs. I don't remember which one though. But okay, one thing is certain though. All these characters, they got reincarnated back into their same gender. So why is Odin different? If female Eivor is canon, then why is it different for Odin, right? Basim, still male. Sigurd, still male. Halfdan, still male. Freya, still female, right? Once again, this wouldn't be an issue if they swapped it. Like if Freya was a dude, or Halfdan was a girl, right? Then it would make a lot more sense. That, okay, they can reincarnate into whichever body, into whatever, and that's what reincarnation means, right? Reincarnation is like, oh, if I die, I'll come back as something else, right? But that's not the case in this situation, because not even a single one of the other gods are reincarnated into any other gender. Right, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why is it specifically for Odin? Right, that's my first gripe that I have, that it doesn't make a lot of sense, because why is it specific to Odin? Right, and the second thing is mostly just because of opinion. I don't think that, and once again, this is all opinion. This has nothing to do with facts or anything. With the first one, that actually is a fact, and if you actually know why that is, I would really like to know, because it's interesting, and I want to know, because it's kind of a big plot hole, and it kind of breaks the immersion, because it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? How come everyone else got reincarnated into their same gender, but not Odin? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The second thing is, this is mostly just a preference thing. I just think that the voice actress for female Eivor is just so bad compared to male Eivor. Like, obviously, when I played the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I played for 250 hours. I played the whole thing in male Eivor. Now, and I did not know they could actually switch. I did not know you could actually switch whenever you wanted. I figured that out when I was in like Dawn of Ragnarok, when I was like endgame shit. I did not know you could actually switch the genders whenever you want. I did not know that. I thought it was the same thing how Odyssey was. Once you pick one gender, that's it, right? But apparently in Valhalla, you can switch on the fly whenever you want. You can switch genders, right? And when I did that, wow, her voice was just so bad compared to male Eivor's, right? And this is, once again, this is like a preference thing. Maybe you like it, but female Eivor's voice, it's okay when she's talking regularly, right? But when she's yelling or screaming or trying to sound like menacing, it's the opposite. It's the opposite effect. She sounds kind of stupid, right? It doesn't sound good, basically. Like, here's just a clip for example, right? A side-by-side comparison. They're saying the same line, but the delivery is completely off.
Hearken to the saga of how I slew some ice bears.
Hearken to the saga of how I slew some ice bears.
And once again, another opinion base for me is, if you're playing as a Viking, you gotta have a beard, man. You gotta have a motherfucker. That's the first thing I think about when I think about a Viking. Dual axes, absolutely jacked, tattoos, and a big fucking beard, right? You can't be a Viking without that shit. Now, of course, I know if shield maidens and Valkyries existed, which is why it's more plausible that female Eivor is canon than Cassandra, because Cassandra was born in a culture where there were no female warriors in Sparta, whereas in Viking culture there were female warriors because there were shield maidens and Valkyries. And it's even more evident when you go to like the Asgard sequences when you're actually playing as Odin himself. And I kind of really wish that the second we went to Asgard, we actually automatically switch into Odin, like because it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? If you're playing as male Eivor, then it makes sense, right? His voice changes a little bit, but you know it's still male Eivor, and it's called Havi, right? But when her voice is even worse in the Asgard sections when she's playing as Havi, because she's trying so hard to sound like a dude, right? And that's essentially how I would describe female Eivor's voice. She's trying too hard to sound tough. She's trying too hard to sound like a dude, right? And Havi is literally a dude. See how it's an issue, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? That one glaring issue was so immersion breaking for me. It didn't make a lot of sense, right? I haven't played as female Eivor yet, right? But when I switched, because you can do that, right? When I switched and I was playing as Havi, apparently, which is a woman, all of a sudden, that was really immersion breaking. That made a lot of sense. It really did make a lot of sense. It's quite obvious why Ubisoft even gave us a chance to choose the gender, and it being canon, it's all bullshit. They just want to give you the excuse to choose your gender, right? Like, it's a big fucking deal. Once again, I would not mind if it was only female Eivor. And I understand that the executives at Ubisoft probably said that, oh yeah, you gotta have a male Eivor, which it makes sense. You gotta have male Eivor, right? I mean, I feel like the story makes sense with male Eivor. Not to mention, I like the whole brotherly dynamic that he has with Sigurd, as opposed to sister and brother. I think brother and brother makes a lot more sense. Like, I don't really know how to explain it. But this is, once again, just my personal preference. If you like female Eivor's voice actress, good for you. If you just like her in general, that's even better, right? But me personally, in my head canon, it's always going to be male Eivor as canon, right? And I'm eventually going to play the entire game again, but with female Eivor, because she is hot, and I will play as her, yes, 100%. Just so I can see exactly the differences between male and female Eivor, right? But I've already played a little bit as female Eivor, and I've heard her talk, and it's just so bad, right? It's not good. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? But aside from that, I mean, I feel like everything else is fine, because once again, they're essentially the same character, right? Even down to the animations, they're exactly the same. There's not there's much difference between male Eivor and female Eivor, but I just feel like the story makes a lot more sense as male Eivor, because once again, Odin was a dude, so you should be playing as a dude because Odin was a dude. So it doesn't make a lot of sense why Odin would be a girl. You know what I'm saying? Why Odin would be a chick all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? We see all the other gods and they're reincarnated into their original genders, so why is Odin different? I don't know why, right? And it really takes you out of it, right? It's really immersion breaking, right? So I mean, like, if you're a girl, you're playing that game, then, and you like playing as female Eivor, good for you. I would too, because she's hot, so why wouldn't I, right? But like, aside from that, I do feel like it does affect it quite a bit, because male Eivor's VA is just better, right? That's just a fact at this point. Honestly, like whereas Alexios and Cassandra, their VA were like kind of neck and neck. It didn't really matter. Like, Alexios is more charismatic and cheerful and playful, whereas Cassandra's more stoic and stern, right? But they're pretty neck and neck. I wouldn't say Cassandra's VA is better than Alexios and vice versa, but in this one, it's so lopsided. I mean, it's so obviously male Eivor's voice is so much better. But once again, it's not just because female Eivor is female, but you can see how this one issue can really break the immersion of the entire game. I mean, like, we have, once again, if the story was focused on female Eivor and only her, then it could have been better, because it'd be a lot more personal to her. But now you're juggling a story that has to be both applicable to a male and a female character, which is always going to go wrong. It's never going to feel personal. It's never going to stand out, because once again, you're trying to juggle both things at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, Lara Croft, Bayonetta, Aloy. I mean, these girls are the queens of their own franchise, and they're thriving, right? I don't know why Ubisoft won't just do a single female character. I mean, like, it's 2024, everyone fucking plays as female characters. I do, right? Because once again, I told you that the story makes more sense if you play as male Eivor, right? But once again, it just comes down to personal preference. I personally, in my head canon, male Eivor will always be the canon. I don't care what anyone says, because it just makes more sense. It's just right. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention, there aren't too many like outfits, armor sets that are specific to like female or male Eivor, compared to Odyssey, where Cassandra has many outfits that are only for her, that are meant for her, and same thing with Alexios, right? But over here, whether you're male or female Eivor, once again, they're kind of the same person. It's the exact same fucking thing, except one has a beard and one doesn't. But when you're wearing those giant cloaks and those heavy armors, you can't tell which one's female, which one's male, and I kind of hate that, because I mean, like, what's the point then? If you're gonna make that, then just make this one character. Like, what's the point of having two characters being the exact same thing? But it's very superficial when you think about it. Oh yeah, only thing different about them is their gender. Like, okay, big fucking deal, you know what I'm saying? It's weird because Loki is a sworn enemy to Odin, but when you're fighting them in the Asgard sequences, you're a girl. It's just really immersion breaking. It really just kills the vibe for me. And this is all just Ubisoft bullshit pandering. Like, they really could just lean on the whole aspect of being a female in that time. Now, sure, once again, the whole Viking culture, they accepted women. They were shield maidens and Vikings and earls, right? But I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. The Anglo-Saxons for sure did not believe that. I mean, these guys, didn't they like burn women for like learning how to read and shit like that? So I mean, burn women on the stake, consider them witches because they know how to read. So I mean, yeah, I call bullshit that all these kings and bishops of all these arcs you do would likely take counsel, be pushed around by a foreign female Viking lady, right? I don't think that would happen, right? So once again, in history, it's tough to make a female character without fucking it up, because the same thing I had with Odyssey, right? Because how are all these people okay with Cassandra, a female warrior, running around telling her what to do, right? I mean, it just makes more sense, especially all this historical stuff, because unfortunately in history, women haven't had the same rights as men. That's true, right? I mean, we only recently got that shit now, right? But so that's why, like, that's why it's always gonna be immersion breaking. It's always not gonna make any sense, right? But Ubisoft doesn't really care about immersion at this point. They just want to make money, pretty much. I mean, that's the only reason why they even added the two choices, because they know that people are gonna choose it, right? But the good thing is that you can choose, you can switch back and forth whenever you want. You can only do one arc as male Eivor, one arc as female Eivor, right? Right, but you know what is, and it's not the first time like we've had female characters in Assassin's Creed. We've had one female character in a mainline game, and then two in a spin-off, if you want to count that, right? Evie was kind of the same. I mean, it wasn't really much of a difference, like, because her gender didn't really move the plot forward. It wasn't like a big part of the plot. It was like whatever, right? Xiao Yun was also very interesting because she was a concubine, but then she turned into assassin, and she actually had the foot blade because she's flexible. See that? See how that made sense? Because she's a woman, so she has like a smaller stature, so she can use that acrobatic ability to actually have a different type of hidden blade on her foot this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, Connor could never do that because the guy's an absolute fucking tank. You know what I'm saying? So she used her somewhat weakness, because you assume that women are weak and weaker than men, which technically, if you're talking about physical strength, yes, right? Because men have more muscle mass, more bone density, so yeah, that's true, right? So, but she used that to her advantage. Another good example, who I think tackles this perfectly, is Evelyn. Now, Evelyn as a character is like, she's like, whatever, I don't love her or anything. I'm like, she's a good character, I guess. But one thing I loved about that game is how they did the social stuff and how they incorporated her gender as a whole part of it. Obviously, back in the day, and if you look anywhere in history, women are always going to be like, considered less than men, right? Men aren't really going to listen to them for the most part, right? That's the unfortunate truth, right? But what Evelyn did is that she has three different personas. She can either be an assassin persona, or a slave persona, or a lady persona. As a lady persona, she can like walk around in her fancy gown, and she can shoot people. She can shoot dudes out of her parasol, her fucking umbrella, whatever the hell that's called, right? And she can essentially seduce guys and tell them to do what she wants. You know what I'm saying? Which is essentially the woman's greatest tool, is the ability to manipulate men, right? Because women, because an actual strong woman would actually, she would manipulate a guy and then let them do all the fighting. You know what I'm saying? That's like a 500 IQ play, right? And she can turn into a slave if she wants. To get into those areas, so she can get, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, they tackled it before in Assassin's Creed, and they actually did it well. Her being a woman and being in that society, it showed in the gameplay, and so that way, okay, this is immersive, because okay, usually they don't accept women in these situations, but oh look, now she's seducing them. Oh look, now she's shooting them out of an umbrella, right? It's very immersive in that regard. That there's a difference between playing as Connor and Evelyn, right? Connor's going in, he's fucking tomahawk in hand, fucking dagger, taking out an entire army single-handedly, whereas Evelyn, she can just sneak right in using her lady persona or tell people to do her bidding, right? Simple as that. So and that was like in 2012. That was like 2012. Yeah, that was in 2012. That was like years ago, right? They nailed it back then, and that was like a small game. That was like a spin-off PS Vita game, right? That's technically not even considered like an actual Assassin's Creed game. It's like a spin-off for a handheld game, but they did it pretty good, right? And that's a problem with Ubisoft pandering nowadays, because they just have to. You know what I'm saying? You miss out on actually telling stories for women. I get it, but I understand why they had to do it, because of money, right? Because you got to have the option to play as a male character, but in doing so and declaring the female character canon, right, in doing that, you jeopardize the whole story and narrative from the female's perspective, right? Because now it doesn't make any sense, right? And Ubisoft, they just love having their cake and eating it too. I mean, they just they in the trailer, it was literally male Eivor, right? And all promotional material was male Eivor. And the fucking box cover, like, how embarrassing is that you are the supposed canon character, but you're not even on the box? It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Same thing with Aya in Origins, right? She wasn't a playable character, but it impacted her. Remember when Caesar told her to not go, right? When he gave the pouch to Bayek, and then he's like, oh yeah, this is a man's job, right? And she showed them by actually doing it, right? So that's like a whole girl power scene without actually forcing it to be girl power scene. You know what I'm saying? But see how her being a woman actually became a hurdle, but then she overcame that. See how that's actual good writing? Yeah? Nothing that you would know of, right? And I know you're gonna say that, oh yeah, well, if male Eivor is canon, then why does he have a female name? I know that is a little weird, right? Because male Eivor having the name Eivor is like the equivalent of some guy here in America having the name Emily, right? It sounds weird. It would have been nice if they actually changed their name like they did in Odyssey, with one being Alexios, one being Cassandra, right? But I mean, they really were pushing the fact that these are two complete the same characters, right? These are two characters who are exactly the same. Whereas in the narrative Odyssey, you can kind of see, because if you pick Alexios, and the next character is going to be in the story but a different character. So technically they are two different characters, Alexios and Cassandra, right? But yeah, and you know, male Eivor's voice just has so much depth to it. Like, because you'd expect like a Viking to sound like, right? Like the stereotypical Viking type of guy, having a hardy, grizzled voice, grovelly voice. But like, you know, his voice is actually kind of refreshing. It was like very, very different. I didn't expect him to sound that way, because it makes sense, because he's like a warrior and a poet, right? So I mean, I guess that makes sense why he would sound that way. He's not just like a stereotypical Viking. He's like, oh, you know, he's like a big deal, Eivor guy, right? Yeah, but you know, it does sound weird that you're basically calling him a female name every single time. If his name was like Eivor or Eivor or some other male what do you call it, version or variant of it, it would have been a lot more better. But you know, most of us didn't even know that. You had to check on the internet, right? And you can see, like, throughout the entire game, you can see that she was always meant to be the canon character. Eivor, Varen's daughter, she was meant to be canon, because many times throughout the game, I don't know if this is probably just a bug, right? But many times I'm playing as male Eivor, right? The entire time I'm playing as male Eivor, but what happens is the characters will call him a her. They'll say, oh look, here she is, or that's what she said, even though I'm clearly playing as a male.
Never happened. What about the tall one? Can we ask her to help break this tie? Can we ask her to help break this tie? Can we ask her to help break this tie? Right,
it's quite obvious it was always supposed to be female Eivor to be canon, you know what I'm saying? And one thing I noticed throughout playing the game, like, I got laid like so very late. Like, I think like 50 hours into the game I got laid, right? Because I was playing as a straight guy, right? Because I'm straight. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to. But I noticed, like, so many times throughout all the arcs, I kept getting dude romance options, which is great if you're gay, but like I wasn't, right? So that also makes you think that maybe that was, like, you know, if you're like a hetero girl, then you would want, right? Because we don't know exactly what Eivor's sexuality was, what they're attracted to, right? Whether that be male or female, I don't know what, right? But I don't know, the fact that I got so many male romances. I think that goes to show that maybe it was always supposed to be female Eivor, which it once again is another good example why it could be. Another thing I noticed is that I think the reason why female Eivor was always meant to be canon is that Basim actually would recognize her a lot later. Now see, the reason why Basim did what he did is because he wanted revenge on Javi, right? On Odin, because he bound up his son Fenrir, right? And as we all know, Basim is the reincarnation of Loki, right? And as we also know that Eivor is reincarnation of Odin, and Sigurd is reincarnation of Tyr, right? Now, so this entire time Basim was actually after Sigurd. His main target was never Eivor, right? He thought Sigurd was maybe Odin, but he didn't know that Odin was right there in front of him the entire time in Eivor, right? And I think another good thing you can think about is that Basim, obviously, if he saw male Eivor, he'd automatically know that, oh, boom, this is Odin, because he looks exactly the same, right? And once again, all the reincarnations look exactly the same, right? Except some may have facial hair, some may not have facial hair. Like, for example, Tyr, he didn't have any facial hair, but Sigurd does, right? So that makes it a little harder, but you can tell, like, their faces and everything else is nearly identical. You know what I'm saying? And once again, I'm not saying that female Eivor isn't canon. I'm sure she is. Officially, she is confirmed to be canon, but I'm saying she doesn't feel canon, right? And she doesn't feel canon to me, and that's why in my head canon, it's male Eivor, right? And obviously Ubisoft doesn't actually give a shit about the canon, so why should I give a shit about what they say, right? They say, oh, female Eivor is official canon. Who gives a fucking shit? I believe male Eivor is still canon, so fuck you, Ubisoft, because you also don't give a shit about the franchise like I do, right? So yeah, that's basically why I don't think that she's canon, and why actually playing as female Eivor is immersion breaking, and it kind of detracts from the experience. But that's just my opinion. I still like female Eivor. I once again, I do like me a badass Viking chick, right? Who's also hot. That also helps. Yes, thank you very much. Right, and I will play as her on my next playthrough, because I want to know how it's like. You know what I'm saying? And if you like female Eivor, good for you. If you don't, who fucking cares, right? This is all this fucking game. Who gives a shit, right? But like at the end of the day, if we're talking about it, if we're getting down to brass tacks, I mean, it does make a big difference between choosing male Eivor and female Eivor. Me personally, right? The biggest thing I think, of course, is the VA. But that all depends on, once again, it's all just your opinion at the end of the day. I don't know, but I mean, that's basically what I think about. And I mean, pretty much, scald, bitch.